This is why you swing from pushing too hard to giving up, right? I like to see it as moving from control to collapse, right? And it's something I've seen with a lot of high performers, a lot of people in entrepreneurship, sales, this sort of thing, is they're always playing with these two polarities of control and collapse, right? How many times have you seen maybe yourself or people in your industry where they're in real discipline mode, they're pushing, pushing, pushing. And as soon as like they hit a point where it's like, oh, that's too much, they fall into collapse. Often they like drop a lot of their habits. They like miss the gym for a good few weeks. Maybe they get into some kind of addiction for a little bit. And then what happens? It swings back to control in the end. Okay. But eventually we want to break this polarity, because this polarity is actually creating both, right? So when we're in control, we're actually creating collapse. And when we're in collapse, we're actually just creating that tense control. And the reason is they're both solutions to a problem, okay? They're both our internal assumption of what we need to do to fix some kind of problem, okay? So a good example of this is some people feel a sense of lack of self-worth, feel a lack of safety. There's so many different internal constructs that could create this, but we're going to use the example of self-worth, okay, for this one. And so what happens? Well, if someone's constructing a reality where they're not worthy, where something, maybe sales or maybe their business creates a sense of worth. They projected their worthiness on their business, on their sales, on how well they're doing, on their achievement. And so what happens is they keep moving through this control because I need to get it, because I need to get my self-worth back, and collapse of like, oh, I just can't do it anymore. And they collapse into the, I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not that, right? And that can be a 4-year cycle, right? It can be a decade cycle. Some people are really good at just being in control, but eventually it comes, right? Eventually the payment is ready and you fall into collapse. And so it's all arising from this construct, whatever this construct might be. We're using the example of worthiness here, but it could be something else, like feeling a lack of safety, so we're in deep control, right? Feeling like I'm not loved if I don't do this, so they're in control again, right? There's some kind of internal construct which is creating this very rigid polarity. An example in my own life was around two things. Number one was sales calls, and the other one was actually I was doing a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition. And what was happening is as I would go either into control, I must make the sale work, or with BJJ competition, I must win the competition. I must, really, really tense. But then there would be this collapse of like, oh, I just don't care. Oh, I just don't care. You know, just if it doesn't sell, it doesn't sell. It doesn't matter. And it would always be this swing of polarity of like control, I need to do it, tension, 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 or collapse, I don't care, doesn't matter, I don't care, I'm just going to surrender, see what happens, right? Losing all of my own power, okay? Now, what happened is I started to explore what is creating this. And for me, it was actually very similar to this worthiness one, right? And so what was happening is worthiness was a projection. Okay, so projection is when we put our power, something inside of us, outside of us. And so I was projecting my worthiness on sales and BJJ, right? If I win the competition, if I make the sale, I become worthy. If not, then I'm unworthy. And then the collapse would be a way of dealing with that. It's like, well, what if I just make sure it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. But it was a mind version of still living with the construct and trying to rationalize it, right? Rather than actually removing the construct, it was trying to rationalize it with the collapse. And so what happened? Well, I had to re-own the projection, re-own my own worthiness, say, you know, well, that's actually mine. Okay, that's mine. But then I was encountered a block, because the reason we project is because of often an introject, right? So this is the block, the introject. An introject is a false truth. So I encountered this false truth that I am not worthy, that I am not this, that I am bad, or I am this, whatever it may be. And so I had to give the introject back to where it came from. And so what happened is when I got rid of the introject, I got rid of the false story, the false narrative, the projection of worthiness was able to come back to me very easily. And so the projection started to dissolve. And so what happens when the projection starts to dissolve? Well, now, no longer is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition a place to find worthiness, but no longer was the sales a place to find worthiness. They were just things I was engaging in. And what I found is I started to approach them in very different ways. I started to approach sales and I really want to help these people. I really want to connect with them and see what is the really genuine next step for them. And it helped a hell of a lot. And then for the jiu-jitsu competition, I was like, well, I want to get really good at expressing this art of jiu-jitsu. It's really fun for me. It's a really beautiful way to move and be with my body. And so because the projection was re-owned and the introject was given away, the whole polarity, which was built on a sense of being self-worth outside of me, collapsed completely. We no longer had the I need to control, but also no longer had the collapse into unworthiness, I'm bad, I'm this, I'm that. And so the whole construct, the whole internal architecture completely collapsed, right? Completely collapsed. And so what was I left with? I was left with just a natural expression of what was arising. I was able to go into sales calls without storylines. I was able to go into jiu-jitsu match without storylines and just show up, do my best. Sometimes it went really well, sometimes it didn't. But I felt, and what I noticed is that I was doing better and I was showing up much more in flow because I wasn't held down by all of these stories. Okay. And so the key here is we have to realize we're built on constructs. So constructs, this is how we map our reality. For example, if this is my I, or just my experience of the world, then I can't take everything in. There's just way too much. The whole world, like there's just so much. So I'm going to come with a filter. And this filter is built on my constructs. And so we're getting a slightly derailed, but this is an important thing to notice. For example, you ever notice people who just are really comfortable at like a much higher level than you are? Maybe they're at 7 or 8 figures a month, whatever it may be. And that's just very normal for them because that's within their construct as normal, okay? Where for you, that might feel like, oh, that's really, really big, right? That's really, really a lot. And so it actually makes it a lot harder. Whereas in reality, that's just their normal. And they filter through reality, but that's the normal, okay? Same thing here. If I'm filtering through a reality where all of these things outside are a projection of my self-worth, then I'm just going to constantly create this internal experience of collapse and control, as well as many other different internal experiences. But when I allow the construct, right, it's not that we're breaking all constructs, we're just breaking the ones that aren't useful. And we allow that to dissolve. Well, then the filter starts changing, right? Let's say it was around the income level, right? Now maybe 8 to 7 figures feels more normal for you. It feels very available for you. It doesn't feel like a big deal. You're not making storylines around it. For the worthiness, when it stops being about worthiness, maybe you start to say, oh, maybe that competition or that sales call can actually be enjoyable, right? You ever notice people really enjoy their work? It's because their constructs are set up in a way where that's just available for them. And so the real core of this work is we want to work with the constructs to allow for us to create a reality that's not filled with a bunch of storylines about who we are and how we're showing up and if we're enough and if we're worthy and if we're loved. We want to be in a clean place, right? This is the idea of shadow work and cleaning up. We want to be in a clean place where we're seeing reality much more as it is. And in that way, we experience much more joy, much more peace, much more richness of life. And we don't get in the way or limit ourselves when it comes to what we want, whether it's reaching that next big goal or whether it's experiencing a holistic, happy life as a whole.